Recording is on.
Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, July 14th, 1500 UTC. Happy 2 years of on-chain governance to DXDAO. This is the 2-year anniversary of when governance started on DXDAO. So after the initial staking period, it was until July 14th that the first proposal started flowing through DXDAO. So it's quite a I don't know if accomplishment or a something to kind of take stock in. So we do have a POAP that should be sent to any address that has interacted with DXDAO governance over the last 2 years. I think you've been voted or stake or boost a proposal, and we tried to get as much of the XI activity as we could. And just to show it real quickly, because you can't see the image, this is a nice little image that I think Boris had done to get that. And so we'll also be doing an article that hopefully we'll get out the end of today, and then tomorrow on the community call will be another kind of opportunity to do that. So just wanted to highlight the 2-year anniversary at the beginning. Cool. And then, just going on to the proposal roundup. So on mainnet, there are 13 proposals that are boosted or pending boosting. LNHB's worker proposals. There is the update swapper.eth proposal. So this is an update to the latest release of Swapper that will fix a couple key things. I think it's nice to see another proposal like this kind of turn around so quickly there. And then there are 3 buybacks currently in progress on mainnet. So that's 6 proposals total. There are 2 proposals to claim mainnet rep, one for SkyMine Labs and one for Keen and Luke. So this is this is a nice way to increase the rep distribution on mainnet. And so Keenan and Sky had just claiming the rep that they had earned from their XDAI proposals that it's paid out already. And so those proposals are there. There is a proposal for DXDAO attending the Daoist, which is a $2,000. It sends $2,000, I think, to the Daoist multisig or DAO. I don't know if Keenan or Sky want to talk briefly about the Daoist proposal.
Sure. So it's a DAO focused event, and it's really, okay, call it attending the Daoist. It's really like a sponsorship / support / backing, and then potentially actually it may get DXDAO membership in the Daoist DAO once that's created, and then we'll be a participant in this entity that will be at a bunch of different events. Will have their own speaker things and could become something much bigger than just one-time event. And so showing support is the initial step, but it's not like the official. I mean, I guess it's a sponsorship. We're on their site now as we have one of the lower sponsorships, and there's some top, medium, and lower ones, and we're the lowest one, but our logo is on there, and we'll likely be on materials at the event and stuff too. We have our own swag. I think some of our own swag that we would be bringing that we could share there, but they're not doing anything for us for that. And then there's separately trying to organize a panel that's planning to organize a panel. I think it's on the agenda. That's DAOs building in the DAO space, across a spectrum. So from true DAOs to not true DAOs, and have a discussion around how some of the obstacles and things, and grow the awareness of what the challenges are for DAOs to build in this space if they're actually on-chain, decentralized DAOs. And then that will highlight to the crowd there, hopefully, which is really DAO focused, more awareness of what the different ways that DAOs, including DXDAO, are approaching these different topics, like owning their product site and using tools and things like that. So I think it should get us some exposure and awareness.
Definitely. That's why it's cool. I think it's coming from a proposal too, right? On chain, kind of demonstrate that to other DAOs in the space. So cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there is the initial funding proposal for the communications and marketing multi-sig resubmission. So just as a recap, this was a resubmission proposal that we had problems with 2 weeks ago because we had sent USDC to the a relayer contract. We went over this 2 weeks ago. That's not why the sirens are coming for us now. But it was, we went over this 2 weeks ago and talked about it there and on the call. And this is just a resubmission of that previous one. We did like triple, quadruple check and even do a sample transaction to the multi-sig. So I think we're feeling good about this. And this is a good step in terms of enabling the DX Connect marketing communication squad to kind of be more nimble and be able to act and kind of engage with different groups.
Yeah, I'm just wondering regarding that failed proposal. Like, what can we do in the future to like prevent this from happening? Like, this should be like one learning curve, and we should probably have something in place so that, I don't know, either like more people check out proposals, or I don't know, something like that. We shouldn't like repeat this.
Yeah, I think one thing that came out of it that I just put like officially in my worker proposal, and that everyone is supposed to do this, I think, is like 10% of your role at DXDAO should be based on governance proposals, looking at every single one of them, staking, voting. And so if you're not doing that, it should be now included in your worker proposal. Because the only thing that stops this is attention from lots of different people, basically technical and non-technical people.
But those would be like, but they're like, I don't know, for worker proposal, like everybody votes because everybody is familiar what it does. But this like, like this marketing proposal or some more complicated ones, not everybody checks them out, because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was tricky in certain ways. Like some things we've done, like adapted to the past, like using Tenderly, for example, to simulate whether our proposal is successful. Like that wouldn't have really saved us here because it like works in terms of getting the thing. So and it's like we had actually done relayer stuff before, so I think there was like a false sense of confidence, right? That we knew what we were doing, and that and there's also like the technical issue of why we have to do relayers at all is because we're on outdated software. So I mean, there's several layers of like where this sort of slipped through the cracks, and I think those are all lessons that we kind of have already looked at, and so I mean, like simulating proposals, like making sure that like the once we upgrade the governance system, we'll kind of get rid of that old code that is kind of causing some of those problems in the first place. And I think also like anytime we do something new, we get it audited, et cetera. Like we already do these things, right? And so it was kind of like this set of, it's not usually not one thing that causes a problem. It's like, you kind of missed it here, and missed it here. And I think maybe one of the newer lessons from this is like, just like how we do the communication, right? Like, so when we're doing something, that's moving a certain amount of money or whatever, maybe we have a little bit of a process there around, say what you want to do, like put it in something, and like it needs to get, reviewed by one or two technical people or something. And I was actually just talking with Tammy about this before the call. So I mean, maybe we'll do something process-wise just to try to improve communication.
Yeah, so I was also thinking it could be beneficial if someone making proposal is in obligation to ping at least two people to review it, like, or have like had somebody like audit it. And also, like, I saw somebody commented on that post, like, can we implement like minimum percentage of vote power?
Augusto, are you trying to speak? Or is
your
hand just
sorry. What this is something that we already implemented in DXvote, where we are requesting a minimum percentage of votes in boosted proposals now in order to be executed. And I think a big takeaway here is that it was a lot of money and it was not as much review as it should be, right? So if you are going to transfer such a big amount, you don't need, you shouldn't have one pair of eyes. You have, I know, at least 4 or 5, right? Like we were transferring like 75,000. So I guess we should measure risk. There was a bad risk measurement here. No, we should have more people on it. For example, if someone would have told me that proposal was being executed the way it was, I would have catch it at the first sight, but I didn't. So
yeah, and I mean, and I don't want to get like there's some nuance there. Like I think there were a decent number, not decent, like a handful of people looked at this, right? And it's like, but they all had like an assumption about how it worked that was like not right, right? And we didn't catch that. And that was the problem, right? And like I said in kind of an initial call, we talked about like I voted on that proposal, and like I was actually screening it for what I was worried about it when I'm voting, like that it's something malicious, but I didn't do any critical thinking about what like was actually happening technically. And I was capable of, if I did do that thinking, like I could have realized, oh, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. Like this isn't actually going to work, right? But I wasn't thinking like that when I was like reviewing the proposal and voting. So I made this like, had this assumption baked into my viewing that like allowed me to make this mistake. And I think like that sort of has happened several times in this process, right? So yeah, like, I mean, it's kind of like if people think something is going to work a different way and we're wrong, that's really dangerous, right? So we have to like kind of go back to like communication and like getting clarity on understanding how things work too.
In addition, I just don't want to say that I would have 100% catch it, right? Like, but let's say if I had a 90% chances of got that error, and John did that too, right? But John was the only one who take a closer look at it. But if I would have taken a look, or also besides me, Nico or Fede, or I don't know, or someone else in the technical team, we would have minimized this risk a lot, and this wouldn't have happened. So this is what we need to do in the future. If you are transferring a lot of funds or it's an important proposal, get more reviews in the technical level. One is not enough.
And that should happen at the beginning, right? Like it shouldn't be like, oh, we think this is, this looks like it's been written, like approved by the technical team, and now it's just in a proposal. Like at the beginning, we should have like multiple technical.
So we already had this situation again, and we don't have a solution to it. We wanted to send $2,000 worth of a token to a DAO on XDAI from DXDAO. We still don't know, even though it's outlined exactly what we want to do, we still don't know if it's possible. We don't know, like every time we do a new type of proposal that we haven't done, we don't know if it's possible, and we still don't know if it's possible. So the answer that we did was, because we don't know, and no one technically, like it's not easy to technically figure out if we can even do this payment correctly, we decided to do a mainnet proposal and send USDC to a multi-sig. The only reason we decided that is because we know 100% that works, and the other thing is still an unknown, even though it shouldn't be that complicated, but it's not possible to technically know if it will work unless you do like a test with $1.
Yeah, saying it's not possible might not be the quite correct characterization, but I would agree that staying with things that we are more confident with makes sense, right? Like if we've done it before, exactly the same way.
But so this example of like, can DXDAO, XDXDAO and XDAI send either ERC20 or XDAI to a DAO another DAO on XDAI, we should figure out if that's possible.
Well, I think the answer is yes, right?
What is?
Yeah, that we can send funds to a smart contract address at XDAI. We've done that before.
We can. On the technical level, we can.
No.
I don't know.
And it works. It works from start to end. Like, we don't know this. We definitely don't know that this works.
Oh, I know.
I can share it again and we can look at it, but we definitely don't know that it works.
What we might not know is like whether the recipient address has like the right.
Exactly.
Like, what's going on with that thing? Like, I mean, so
exactly.
We should talk. Who are we sending it to? Like,
We're sending it to a DAO. So, but like, if we actually sent that payment, it could be lost.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think we can maybe talk about this offline, just this specific instance. I think Violet is kind of right to think about like, what are we doing differently? And I think the big thing I'm thinking about here is like proposal, like before submitting a proposal, getting feedback and kind of having someone else look at it. And I think it's a really good way of, you know, I when I do a lot of proposals, I will create like a Google sheet or a Google Doc and then just place things in there and maybe have someone else look at that. But long term, we do need to think about incentives for governance. And this is something we talked a little bit on in governance 2.0, but like that's really we need an incentive to build this in the long term of getting eyes on governance. And yeah, I think that's something that we could try to solve almost at the protocol level going forward. Okay, just want to moving along here. So that's it for mainnet. And then for XI base, we've got 12 proposals boosted and pending boosting. Just to go through some of the proposals, I want to talk about the Martin one in a second. But there are worker proposals for Atom, Hexel, Venki, Level K, Medusa. There is a 74 DAI DXdocs registration reimbursement. Thank you, Keenan. I'm looking forward to voting for that. There are rep boosts for Cabela, Snoofkin, and Caster Magic. A couple others that will need to be boosted. And then there is one XDXD buyback proposal, I think, that is set to pass in 2 days. And then, yeah, I wanted to kind of open the floor up for the Martin Krung's worker proposal. This was a discussion topic last week, and then a proposal was submitted, I think, on Thursday and boosted, and then actually went into overtime here. And it looks like it will. It's the proposal is still live for another, I think, 22 hours, but looks like it is set to fail. So I was hoping that we could try to regroup a little and figure out how to find a resolution on how to move forward here. So I know Martin is on the call, and there's some people also that voiced some comments in the thread on this. Candy Fork did vote for the proposal, that one, the one that was previously submitted, and I'm just kind of hoping that we can come to some way of figuring out a path forward for both parties going forward. So I don't know if anyone wanted to kick off with specific comments.
Yeah, maybe myself, if that's okay. Hi. So my proposal failed. Yeah, let's take a step back, and I will try to make a new proposal, which will then pass through. And my suggestion is that, yeah, there was a dynamic in this. You know, I did the proposal, and then I got another pushback, and then I did see that I don't think that I will have a future in the DXDAO. So yeah, looks like I'm out. I think everyone will know this. So yeah, and during this process, so what I suggest is that I take a haircut, and my haircut will be in the sense that I don't claim, you know, my June payment, because it's maybe some did not completely understand. I worked 7 months, but the proposal was just about the 6 months, and there was a reason I kept like this, because yeah, then it fits the DAO talk proposal. But what I would suggest is that I will make a new proposal. The amount will be the same, but I will write down that I will waive my will not claim my June proposal and my June salary. So this is the haircut I take. It's around 14% of all. Secondly, what I would suggest, because what's disputed now in this vote now, it's the rep part, and even in the last talk we had a week ago, I suggested somehow that I take a rep cut, but then in the end I didn't. So my proposal would be that I make two proposals. One will be the same amount like now, but I will write down into proposal that I take the haircut by not claiming the June month. And then I will do a second proposal who is just about the rep. If this is okay, I would claim half of the rep of my 6 month work. And then we vote on both. I hope the salary will pass, and I will accept any outcome in the rep vote. That's my suggestion, and of course it would be nice if it's going through next time, and so yeah. What do you think about this?
Just for me, that sounds like a very reasonable approach. I think it's good to break it down, and good to clear up any ambiguity about what you're not claiming and what you're claiming. My stance is basically the same as what I said last time, that I think you should get paid fairly. The reason I ended up voting against this one is there did seem to be like some voices that weren't getting attention about whether it was fair or not. So I think I would like to hear from Zet and Augusto on like whether they think that's fair, and because I think it's really important that we do establish accountability here, right? Like I think we all want to see this kind of end and put this behind us, but like accountability is also important. And yeah, I will support any proposal when we have some like clarity and any kind of major concerns are addressed.
I commented on it. Yeah. Okay, go first.
Okay, let's do it. So I think from my point of view, why I voted against is what was communicated during the meeting, and then what was presented during the proposal seems to be like different. At least from my point of view, I expected some rep cut and the June cut that you mentioned wasn't actually mentioned in the.
Yes, that's true.
So that's the only, like for me, that's like my main reason. I wanted it to be on the record that there was some cut.
Okay. Yeah, Augusto already.
Yeah, and
So my question is, should I make two proposals, one for the payout and one for the rep? Because can everyone agree that if I claim half of the rep, this is okay? And yeah.
And just to kind of,
maybe we don't have the easy thing about doing two proposals. Then we don't have to find consensus on the rep. Everyone can vote how they want to vote. I will accept this. Maybe I don't get any rep. Maybe I get half of it. Yeah. And otherwise, if we make one proposal in one, then we need to discuss now, and because I don't want to make another round.
Yeah, Martin, I would suggest that create two proposals.
Okay.
One regarding the reputation and another the compensation, and in fact, what I expressed it on the DAO Talk post, I think that the cut you are receiving is I think it's too much. Like it's more like I feel like more like a punishment where it shouldn't be that. But
it's okay for me. It's okay.
Okay. If it is okay, the important thing that The important thing is that you don't feel it as a punishment, because that is not. And even though you are, I feel like even though that you decided to leave DXgov, you should, if you want, you should still be involved in the organization, and you will still be highly appreciated for all your
I
work.
will think
And
about
this
this.
is because-
I think it's nice that you tell me this, because I will think about this, and I think if this is resolved, and I will go to vacation 2 weeks, and then I maybe will be back, and then
Yeah, and I also wanted to say that, like what Sky said about the reputation, that I think it is you work all the work you did, even if it wasn't like different in eyes of other reputation holders, you should receive reputation for your work that you did. How much reputation that is going to be decided, but yeah, you should receive rep, and you should still, if we can, you should still be involved in the future of DXgov decisions, because it was 6 months that you were part of it. So
yeah, I miss you all, guys. It's true. You know, but
Martin,
it's how it is. You know, it's how it is. We had like this.
Martin, are you claiming rep for June?
No.
So you're not claiming pay or rep for June, right?
No.
Is that a
what you see? What you see now in the proposal is going to fail. The amount will be the same because the June is not in there, but the rep I will cut in half.
Yeah. Well, so there's already a haircut on rep, and there's already a haircut on pay, and there's a number of people. Zet proposed you should get no rep. Evan proposed you should get no rep. Geronimo supported a proposal with no rep. John seemed to be supporting no rep in general. And this idea of, to me, of separating, of even the idea of saying someone who's contributed should get paid dollars, but not get paid the rep that they've earned by contributing, that sets a very dangerous precedent where every time, like everyone's got like different reasons why we set rep to zero.
I do not. Somehow I agree, but somehow I'm not, because I didn't do the proposal. You know, I didn't do the governments how it should work. You know, I think it's okay to get like a haircut on the rep, because
a haircut. Hold on. A haircut of 50% or maybe 15% or something. Is that saying you skip governance? You should get zero rep. Evan saying
I never said zero rep. I never said zero rep. If you check the post, I said you should get rep for the month that you actually did the governance. This is what I said, and that was just a suggestion, right? So I'm up for discussion.
But there is 4 or 5 people that were like implying no rep.
That's not what I implied. I implied that we should listen to Zet and Augusto's feedback. I think Evan said no rep, and maybe Geronimo echoed it. Yeah, and he's not here on the call today, so he can't clarify that. But I mean, just from my standpoint, like I think Zet's suggestion is reasonable, right? Like the governance process was skipped, like putting that.
Totally. So if you skip governance for X number of months, you don't get that rep, right?
That was my point.
Is that correct? Okay, so everyone going back who has skipped governance for some amount of months loses that rep?
I mean, that's up for discussion. If someone argues if I did that, I'm open for that, right?
Going forward, right?
I think reputation is incredibly important to scaling DXDAO, and we need to think about ways to encourage and bring in new people into DXDAO and giving them governance power. There are lots of growing pains with this. We can't just go out and kind of distribute rep. But I think that our overall attitude of DXDAO should be one about expanding and distributing and inflating rep, not kind of hoarding it.
Just so I can make my point here. I'm not saying that we're gonna make it harder to get rep. If someone knows the rules, gets reminded of the rules, and for whatever reason there is, ignores the governance, right? it's disrespecting the system or the rep system that we are giving them, right? It's on purpose. It's not like a not on purpose or something happened, someone was sick. I would say we should be careful who we give rep to, right? And until we know that the person like respects the system, I think we should think about it at least. I'm up for discussion. As I said, that was just a.
Said it was not on purpose. I just, I didn't have my company in place, and then
I mean, Martin,
it's
Martin,
not how it should be done.
Martin, you and me are in almost in the exact same situation. But like, I'm not trying to get into details here, but there's like different ways you can do this, right? You could still do signaling proposal that says
that's true.
Actually, you guys are not in the same position. Like, the reason Martin did everything he could to set up his company, there's just he had to wait a certain amount of time for tax reasons. Like, I understand that we're all in the same position because we have to figure out our different statuses and figure out, processes. But just because, we all live in different parts of the world and we have different legal obligations to deal with our taxes. Not everyone has the same obligations. So, like, I think, Martin really did try to do what he thought was best. And maybe it was, definitely took longer than it should have. And we should have all communicated better with one another about how to deal with the situation earlier on. But yeah, otherwise, I'm just going to agree with Sky and Chris that I think we should be discussing about how to give rep out more and decentralize governance as much as possible. And I think we're going to get into a very difficult situation where we start scrutinizing rep distribution. I thought our stance was full-time employees or contributors received 0.1667% rep per month. I didn't know there was going to be a different distribution based off of, subjective opinions on how good the work was.
I don't think anyone is actually arguing
this is not the
work.
Point. Yeah, the point is the government, and I agree with said on this. The point is the government, it's not about the work.
So how do we, I'm just trying to wrap my head around kind of like Zet's point about governance and how do we address this going forward, like with what Sky said. Like, how do we either make it more of like a blanket acceptance of, rep when you're working, or like what's our takeaway from this? Like, what would you have liked to have improved upon separately that maybe we could fix for the future? Aside from what Martin decides to do.
I mean, I would say, obviously, like us workers, when we see something like this happens, we don't need to go into the work or the quality, whatever it could be. But just if we see the governance process not being respected, if we have internal chats for workers and we don't actually have that person doesn't have a proposal, then maybe we should ask this person, hey, do your proposal, otherwise you can't be in our worker chat. I know this sounds like extreme, but if that happened to, let's say, Martin would maybe think, hey, maybe the solution for me to get my internal work chat active is to do a signal proposal. It doesn't need to pay you out anything, right? So something like that, right?
That's a great idea for going forward.
Yeah.
Now that everyone, we should spread this knowledge around so people know this going forward, but you're applying this going backwards too, right?
Yeah, but to myself, and I accept it. So what's the problem?
Yeah, Martin finds it fair, so it's cool. Yeah. And I believe the new governance framework version 2 has this decay function for inactivity that will kind of help resolve this in a way.
Yeah, like most of us, Martin doesn't want to talk about this anymore. He just wants to get this over with. That's why he is happy to this. But this sets a precedent when you split up rep and pay, and you judge people based on different things going forward and going backwards. It just sets a precedent. And as long as everyone's aware of that and we're all cool with it, then let's do it. But if someone doesn't deliver something 1 month and they don't get their rep, but they only get some of the pay, that's great. All right.
But the reason is, I'm like the exception. I'm an exception. I failed.
You're exceptional.
Yeah, I failed on several levels, it looks like.
Yeah,
I can't deny this.
Yeah, I think I think we've actually had a good discussion this week too, and I think there are a lot of long-term things to think about here in terms of how DXDAO is structured, and I think that's kind of where more of the discussion is now, as opposed to like how do we solve and get to resolution right here. So I do just kind of want to move on, but I want to see if there's anyone kind of last comments on this in terms of kind of, I think we want to get to a resolution stage. So Martin will look for those proposals.
It should be very we should define exactly what's going to be in there, because the last call we had about this, we thought we had this exact thing, and then it was put on there, and then like new things come up. So it's fine, but like someone should say exactly what's going to be in the proposal that everyone now seems to have consensus.
I will write it down in the DAO talk before posting it to the chain.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And then
I just want to say that also we shouldn't take for granted everything that happens on the course, on DAO talk. The final answer is going to happen on the governance level, and that is what we are going to be looking for. That's it. We are going to be trusting and seeing the opinions. That is where everything is going to be reflected, and we should be used to that. And maybe we are going to see something happen that we didn't expect it, and that is going to happen more often. I don't know if more often, but it's going to happen again when we are bigger, when we are not 20 but 40 people thinking with different opinions, thinking different, living all across the world. So we are going to have, if you compare this governance core to one from a year ago, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and thing happens. Now we are getting into discussion, we are governing ourselves, and it's going to happen in the future. So yeah, we should be ready and open for this type of thing to happen, and open to try to find a solution quickly, and to try to find a solution here, and this is going to finally be reflected on the blockchain level.
On-chain validation. That's the Gustav's phrase. I think that's like a really important thing.
But it's not validation, it is the governance, right? And I think we need to make sure our off-chain approaches to it like reflect that, right? And I think that's kind of like gets back to what Tammy was saying of like Martin was led by like our off-chain actions to believe that like things were okay, and we need to own that, right, and take responsibility for that. And that's why I support him getting his paid for the full time, kind of, even if it doesn't measure up to some of the results I would have wanted to see. But I think going forward, we should think about really making it clear that the real decision in contracts and agreements are on chain, right? Like for the actual governance.
It's where the funds are.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not final. This is here because it's a useful tool for us to be able to get feedback from people live, right? The DAO Talk's there for some live feedback.
I think the same thing is true for these, like the internal channels, right? Like these are not DXDAO itself. They are like manifestations, something word of that. But it ultimately, they're derivations of the on-chain governance.
One last question before we move forward. There's also another proposal for November. What do we do with that one?
I mean, the one that's already there. I mean, if it's not boosted, I don't really want to look at mostly boosted proposals or proposals I want to boost.
But it's passing though, so.
If it's not boosted, it's not going to pass.
No, it's not staked.
So if it's not boosted, Nathan, it needs to get greater than 50% of rep in order.
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah, it needs a majority vote. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
But you can vote. Yeah, I mean, either way.
No.
Well, people should be aware is if you do vote on a proposal that is not boosted, 4% of your rep gets locked into that proposal, and you get it back when either the proposal expires or if it passes the way you voted. If it fails and goes against the way you voted, like you lose that rep. So that everybody should be aware of that, like mechanic too when you're voting.
Cool. Here's the sweet transition segue to Dave. You want to kick us off with some nice charts and graphs about the Treasury?
Sure, absolutely. I'll try and keep it short, given that we don't have that much time. And we'll also be going over this tomorrow on the community call. So if you do have any questions, maybe we can address them as well tomorrow on the community call. But I prepared a little short just overview of the Q2 Treasury. And I guess we can jump right into it. Whoops. Okay, so of course the accounting period is just the Q2, same as the financial quarter Q2. Overall, the Treasury has actually increased roughly 10% compared to the last quarter, mostly, of course, driven by volatility in the crypto market. As usual, the bulk of our Treasury funds still lie on the Ethereum mainnet, and we still have quite a bit of capital in the buyback smart contract as well, which is just sitting there. Again, we had a lot of volatility during the quarter. And one thing that it actually made me think about is that perhaps we should think about a way of being a bit more dynamic when we're trying to diversify and buy some stable coins, because at some point we did reach almost like a 3-digit million territory with our Treasury. But of course, passing a proposal to actually sell some Ether on mainnet, where all our funds reside, does take 8 days if the proposal is boosted and executed as quickly as possible. And of course, in 8 days, the price of Ether can completely change. So maybe something to think about in the future, if there is some arrangement, perhaps some smart contracts or multi-sigs where some funds can be parked and kind of be able to act more quickly on Treasury diversifications. And then in this quarter, we of course did the Treasury diversification proposal 2, which has been fully executed, getting us roughly $5 million in stables. We actually traded at an average price of 2,876 Ether, which is actually 10% above the average for the quarter. Could, of course, have been better. But, of course, with our governance process, we just have some delays, which, you can't get over in the current setup. Here you can just see, as the proposals pass, our kind of stable coins increasing, and just like a quick balance sheet overview. And on the right, you can actually see the comparison to Q1. So you can actually see where we've kind of course, used some Ether for expenses and also bridging it to XDAI. But also the majority of our kind of movements have been just Ether into stables, right? So we've seen quite a significant increase in stable coins, which of course also the idea behind that being is to secure some potential runway. And just to look at it a bit more visually as well, we can see on the left, we have I should have actually written this down perhaps, but on the left, we have our at end of Q1 Treasury holdings, and on the right, we have end of Q2 Treasury holdings. So again, we can see the real Treasury diversification proposal taking effect here, with stablecoins starting to make up a significant amount of the Treasury, and we're already close to around 15%. So also the numbers don't add up to 100 because I didn't include like Pink Coin and all the kind of like smaller tokens we have a couple of. But so in case you're thinking, why doesn't it add up? That is why. And I also took a bit of a look at rep, given that we, of course, migrated over to XDAI. And we actually currently have around 462 addresses on mainnet who hold rep, 341 on XDAI. And this is kind of just a brief overview of like how the distribution is. It's there are a few larger accounts on XDAI, I would say, but I guess that's also due to the fact that less people are active there compared to mainnet. But of course, this also includes historic rep, which was issued a long time ago. So I would actually say it's not bad, the fact that XDAI has been adopted quite quickly, so to speak. And in fact, 65% of addresses who hold rep on mainnet also hold rep on XDAI. And this, of course, only works for private wallets. So if people have a smart contract, if you take that into account, the number might actually be higher. But I think this is a good measure to show that there has been quite some strong adoption of XDAI. And in fact, I believe all worker proposals have been taking place there, except for really a couple that have gone through on mainnet. Other than that, we also have roughly 2.8 million of capital deployed on swapper LPs. which is probably soon going to increase as well with the launch of Arbitrum. Right now, we have roughly 800,000 on mainnet, which is just a DAI Ether pair. And then on XDAI, we have a couple more LPs, namely these here. And kind of things we're looking to work on for Q3, of course, is DX yield, which is something we already wanted to take a look at in Q2, but yields dropped a lot. So that was kind of like pushed away for a while. And then we've actually also been working on a treasury dashboard. So right now, if you want to see how much DXDAO has in the treasury, it's quite difficult. Like you would have to look on Etherscan, then on XDAI, in the future on Arbitrum, add up the various amounts. And we actually already have a proof of concept dashboard, which is going to be integrated into DXvolt directly. So from there, we'll kind of like have a live screenshot anytime to see what the current holdings of DXDAO are. And then potentially looking at some other treasury diversification, maybe looking at some other stable coins. Of course, for DX yield as well, there are a number of potential platforms to yield on, and we've spoken to a few as well. And then, of course, I believe Arbitrum should be going live this quarter as well. So that's, of course, also another kind of chain we'll be allocating some capital to, both for our products like Swapper, but also just for holding a small treasury there. And it's actually a very brief presentation for today. And another thing, of course, we've also been doing is the buyback program. And with that, I might just give it over to Chris, who has something to say about that.
Well, just to, we are, Dave is going to be presenting this tomorrow on the community call too. And it would be good to have like a pretty good discussion there, maybe some questions, I think, with the community from there. So I think once people have had the time to digest this, it's a good time to, it'll be good to, I think, present that and start that conversation with the community.
Yeah, just one other thing as well. I've also been working a bit on looking at the funding per products. I don't know if you recall in the Q1 presentation, we also had like a Sankey diagram showing all the flows. And I've actually been having some trouble plotting it now as it's getting a bit bigger, but I'm also working on including that soon as well. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Dave.
And I know we are running up on the hour here, but a couple kind of things to touch on here. I wanted to kick off the conversation on the future of buyback programs. So just as a small update, we have DXDAO has acquired 2,499 DXD, just one short of the 2,500, and that's been through XDAI and mainnet, and that right now represents $730,000, so 73% of the way towards the $1 million goal. And there are currently 4 buyback proposals in the queue. Their average buy could be around like $40,000, $45,000. So at maximum, if those proposals are executed as is, then that would take the number of DXD purchased to $900,000 with the proposals already in the queue. Dave and I are talking about submitting probably 2 more proposals that would be comfortable without going through that $1 million threshold. But I think, the discussion has kind of started in the community about what to do when we hit that $1 million threshold, which will probably happen in like 10 to 12 days. There has been previous discussion about using the ETH from the buyback reserve that Dave was talking about, the treasury presentation, to use that to continue buying back DXD. I don't think that we would like take the ETH precisely from the buyback reserve, but maybe just like as a use that as like a accounting way of continuing the buyback program. So yeah, kind of 2 questions for discussion here. One is very like practical. We actually don't have very much WETH left on XDAI. So if we want to continue doing it on XDAI, there's one current proposal, but if we want to continue doing on there, we'll have to send some more WETH over. And then second is what to do going forward as we approach the million number. Presumably, if we want to continue the buyback program, I think we need to do another signal proposal. So thinking about what that signal proposal would include, and maybe how would it be separate or updated from the previous proposals that we had. So any thoughts or comments?
I would say one of the core questions, I guess, is to like, what is that threshold? Right now it's the value of the treasury or the book, however we define that in the buyback, right? I think that's maybe a core question. Maybe good to have some more discussion about that, like next week or something. Yeah, I do remember that Hedgehog in Discord has said, I think a couple of times, that in his opinion, 0.4 ETH, I think was like what he was putting out there, which I think is actually a little bit below the book value translation of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have the answers there. I'm just saying I think that would probably be one of the main questions.
But I think if it's 0.4 ETH and we're at like 0.15 ETH, like that's, even if it's 0.35 ETH, yeah, it could be. Yeah. Like there's a ways to kind of go, and we're bumping up at the beginning of this like threshold. And yeah, I mean, to me, it makes sense just given kind of the numbers and executing it. I guess I do like to have, or would like to think about like limitations on it, right? And so maybe we only do another $1 million, right? I know there's a lot more than that in the buyback, but maybe we just do another $1 million and kind of signal that. And I do think, we've had the big change when the slippage tolerance with the 5%, which is increasing attention. And I do think like the market will start to like almost support the buyback in itself. So maybe if we do another $1 million, like we only get 200,000 or 300,000 before things are kind of there. And then of course the big like, unknown in all of this is like what's ETH doing and what's the market doing, because we're kind of like at the whims of that. So yeah, would $1 million, like another $1 million, we just do that with a simple signal proposal? Or
yeah, I mean, that sounds reasonable to me as a way to like continue it. Yeah, I mean, it does beg this question of like, why is DXD trading so far below book value, right? Which is sort of like this question I think we should maybe ask ourselves. Yeah,
I think it could be related to like when you talk about public companies and you talk about book value, right? You have the market cap and the assets that a company holds, and then you have the shares, which are the equity in the actual company. But like the equity is the actual company, and the difference here is that currently, even okay, in the future we have a different plan for this, but currently DXD token is not a claim on the treasury, it's a claim on revenue from products. And so then it's like, can the treasury turn into products that make money that leads to DXD? And really currently the rep holders have control of the treasury, which is, so there's this mismatch. It's different than like the traditional book value. I don't know what the answer is. It is a different calculation, and that could be very well why like DXD price does not look at book value of a treasury of DXDAO.
And we know that the topic of DXD not having governance control over the treasury got a lot of airtime, right, and got a lot of discussion. And so, yeah, I mean, how that I think might relate to this discussion is like, would it make sense to like not go too far with this, say, until we ship governance 2.0, right? Because maybe that is more fundamental to like this, to like disconnect than
like
if
governance 2.0 exists and DXD holders now have 50% claim on the treasury, like the assets of DXDAO, does that automatically elevate the token price of DXD by the equivalent of that 50% of value, basically?
Well, I don't think we're an efficient market. So like, I think that's the other thing is we can like, you could even with like, okay, DXD doesn't have like direct governance rights. Like you can handicap it in some way. Like a lot of this is just because there's so much noise in the market. And also in the last 2 months, like very little volume across the board. Like there's just not that much like trading going on in this space. I do think that the buyback is actually a nice stepping stone to that governance 2.0 framework because it does literally closer. I mean, it's like combining ties between rep holders and DXD holders, right? Rep holders are taking ETH from the treasury and buying kind of DXD. And so it's kind of supporting that narrative of the union. And then I think that like helps build towards the actual like framework that will lock in that into like a sustainable ecosystem going forward.
Have we felt that this has been like engaging DXD holders more, aside from like our forum discussions regarding buyback and everything, versus like as you said, like is this stimulating the community of DXD holders to like kind of check more in to what's going on with DXDAO and our products? Like does this help that in some way? Like have you seen that at all, Chris, or maybe Keenan even?
Yeah, I mean, I think even like Hedgehog, just an example, right? I think he's kind of a newer-ish. He's probably one of the fewer people kind of newer-ish DXD holders that are kind of come in, and I think it is somewhat engaging. I think especially as a lot of assets are bleeding now, but it's yeah. I mean, I think we need to do a lot more in engaging like the DXD community, but maybe this is like a little bit in that.
Yeah,
direction.
it doesn't feel like a lot, right? It feels like there has been some like Hedgehog being a good example, but it doesn't feel like like people have come out of the woodwork and there's this like super vibrant. Unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I will comment that it has been a significantly noticeable improvement to before. In my personal opinion, of the community engagement and the amount of people chatting and coming to our community calls, I think has increased over time here.
I would say the tone has definitely improved. I think that that's noticeable.
Yes, that is
attitude first, and then it's impossible is nothing or something.
Well, in that sense, then it is good for the governance, like for governance 2.0, just depending on like timeline, obviously. And luckily, like the current, we can even just update, the current kind of written letter that we had, Chris, just to reflect like the new parameters, which I mean, it could still be like 1 million, or if like what you guys decide on the 0.4 ETH measurement versus what we currently have. And you can always stop. Like, does 1 million make sense from a treasury management standpoint? I mean, obviously it's much less than what's in the buyback reserve. Is there any like con in continuing, aside from resources that we shouldn't otherwise? Is that the main concern, obviously, like burning resources?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do get the DXD, and then DXDAO has a lot of DXD, right? Like it doesn't actually need that much more DXD itself. It benefits from that, but like the ETH, of course, we could sell and fund products, whereas the DXD, it's we don't want to be liquidating that as much. So there is some of that there, but I think just again at these prices, like I think it just makes sense.
And if it's accounted for against the buyback reserve, like that's not really for product development. So then that question really isn't there. So
yeah.
Well, then it sounds like it makes sense, right?
The other interesting thing is that the DXD that we buy back, we now have the flexibility, and okay, we're not going to use it for product, maybe for like farming and stuff as much, but we could in specific unique circumstances. We now have the ability to do a swap or a token swap with a project or something. So without the buyback, we can't really like just give DXD for certain initiatives. And with the buyback, we now have the flexibility, and I think it in certain situations, giving out DXD to the like appropriate partners and communities.
Well, we already have DXD that we could use for that. Do you mean more just like it sets the?
Well, the DXD holders were upset that like they didn't want us to supply it to use it. Right?
I think we already did this with the farming, right? That was kind of all of the farming rewards we've had. I think it's 250 DXD on mainnet and like 180 DXD on XDAI that has been sent out from DXDAO, right? And distribution that you're kind of talking about, Sky. But that's like 12% of the total DXD acquired. So I think it just like gives us more flexibility on like to do DXD, to do something with the DXD that is acquired rather than the one that was like vested.
Right, like distributing DXD at these prices would seem irresponsible to like the DXD holder without like showing that the net outflow is being
Yeah, and then this gets back to Augusto's proposal from a long time ago. Like, of the buyback, you could have like the general of buyback, burn 10% of it or something. Like actually burn it, because I knew Augusto used to like to burn tokens.
Yeah, I remember that too. But I'm more open to the burn than I feel like I used to be, just because it's I mean, there's like not that much DXD out there, like circulating supply, right? And I think this is like a way where we're kind of like shrinking. Maybe we're shrinking the supply of DXD holders or people interested in DXDAO to like the most vested entities, and then we'll kind of go from there. But I think John said that YFI is the goal of they're like 37,000 or something.
Burning was always the answer.
At the same time, though, there is known bias against tokens that have a high dollar price like DXD. And so doing what YFI did and creating Woofy, which is whatever, 100th or 1,000th of a YFI, like that may be needed for DXD in the future.
Yeah, I was literally going to mention maybe there's a token split in the future.
That's actually what you want. If there is a need for DXD in the future and there is fewer DXD, that is what is going to increase the appreciation. So the more we burn, the better.
Yeah, because I mean, I think DXDAO has, because it's buying back like what it has, and it has 100,000 that will be vested to it. So like more than 2/3 of the supply, almost like 75% of the DXD supply is like owned by DXDAO.
So would this proposal consider a burn or no? Probably, is that too much?
I feel like that's a little separate, but I think we need to start on that. Like, I mean, I guess it is because it's coming from the buyback reserve. There does kind of open that possibility up, but I think like the burn does like eliminate the flexibility now.
More like once governance 2.0 comes around.
Yeah, maybe it's interesting to think about, but
yeah, the reserve, it does give flexibility, which I think is important. But I think maybe the other element of like a disconnect between like the treasury and circulating market cap is that the fully diluted cap is like actually kind of close to the treasury, and then so we can ask ourselves like, how much flexibility does DXDAO really need, right?
Right.
Does it need 100,000 DXD in reserve? Maybe that's too much. Like, I mean, and speaking from like, I think the earlier discussions before that decision was made, it's like the pre-mint was like, once you pre-mint it, you can't mint more, really, right? So like, I think maybe it was aired on a larger side to allow flexibility. And so like when Augustus was like, burn was always the answer. I mean, like it sort of was kind of like the direction that was possible, right? We can't mint, but we can overshoot and then like burn our way down to what seems appropriate.
Also, following the social media sentiment, I believe there's a certain shift among DXD holders. They see some light in the tunnel to get some return on investment from DXD with the new tokens. So I believe that this will improve kind of like the sentiment of the holders.
Delphi Digital reappeared.
Yeah.
Do you know what also improves the sentiment of holders, Nathan?
What?
Your
Nathan's
meme.
Positive comment.
I was going to say your memes.
Yeah, true.
I feel like I haven't seen any in a couple days. So
it's not the buyback. It's it's Nathan. It's been Nathan all along.
Yeah, it's been 14 days since a
without a meme. Yeah. No, I was just judging by having Yuri come by 2 weeks ago. He was kind of like looking forward to the new token launches that will, for the airdrop, and then the revenue that they will bring with the liquidity that they will attract from the incentives and the farming campaign. So I think there's a lot of hopium, and it's good.
That's what's nice when we like have been doing things, even if like when people come and stop by, like I was saying about this with Delphi, they kind of came in, and it is nice to be like, yeah, we are talking about product tokens. We're talking about like buyback, and they can kind of poke around and see things. And then it's like, oh yeah, they've still been building.
Yeah. It was nice for John to ping Anil and for him to confirm that we're kind of like following advice and hearing what people are saying, listening to feedback, which is really good.
Okay. I know we're way over, so we'll cut it here. Just as there will be a POAP, so claim it. Keenan, I don't know if there was the response there. And then also have a look at the compensation structure stuff. We didn't get a chance to this week with Melanie out, but hoping that everyone can take some eyes on that so we can look to move forward with that quickly. And then, yeah, the community call tomorrow will also be like kind of 2-year anniversary.
Governance celebration.
Maybe celebration. Let's